Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Nick Constantino here with Daniel Weiner, the owner of You Should Talk To. And Dan, my man, I'm going to start with a ring. Okay, so here's the freaking problem.
Can I stay seated?
Here's the freaking problem, okay? The biggest problem you have with the agency model of what has come out of the past several years is that the agency is built to care about their own initiatives before the clients. So let me give you an example. If you are a big enough client, you have a media agency, a creative agency, a planning agency, a strategic agency, an analytics agency, a social media agency, okay? That's a lot of agencies. Each one of those people is not using the dictate of their company to do business for you. They're trying to sell what they think is the most profitable or best for them. So, and the worst part is they don't even talk to each other. And we fell victim to this. When I started this company, we were saying, don't buy digital, buy us, okay? Do you know how asinine it is to tell a company to not buy digital and then do mass media? How are they gonna find you if they're not having themselves SEO? So my problem with agencies is not that there should be less of them. It's none of those things. Is that they don't talk in a room. They don't understand. They act like they wanna be part of this full funnel, but they don't understand how the funnel works and how all these things need to come together. They don't give good advice. And these clients are now sitting here completely disenfranchised by the model in which they created, and they look surprised when you tell them that you broke this whole system. What do you think about that? I didn't yell too much. I was even keel. Okay? I was even keel.
Okay. I don't necessarily disagree. It's one of the taglines I use for my business is finding an agency is easy, finding the right agency is hard. I've seen different statistics, anywhere from 90,000 to 150,000 agencies in the U.S. alone, depending on how you define agency. You're not wrong, but I think that's all the more reason to seek out really strong agency partners. There are a ton of bad agencies out there, not necessarily bad at the work. I think, to your point, they've misaligned expectations and they say all the things that you should say in a meeting, in a pitch to win the business. Oh, we care. We're going to play nice with other agency partners. We have your best interest at heart. They win the business, and then, yeah, they go back to figuring out how to make the most profit out of that account, which again, like I've worked in an agency, I understand. You want your company to be profitable, all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you should have the best interest of your client at hand. And sometimes that means taking money out of your budgeting, giving it to somebody else, or recommending, yeah, we're not the fit for this, or you should put your budget over there.
Preemptively, not before you fail at it. Because what they do 100%. Is they try to do it themselves, fail, and then they go, oh, you know what, it's probably, no, you should have said that beforehand. And I think I've been in the room so many times in those conversations where they're like, we need to take media away from this other agency. Yeah. And I absolutely get it. You are running a business. However, if the model has been created, there are so many different agencies, that's for a reason. That's because someone can't be a one-stop shop.
100%.
So if that's the case, then you're fighting against yourself. You know, I really, Atlanta is an interesting place because Atlanta is not known as a marketing hub, right? Your New York's, your LA's, that's where marketing decisions are, especially New York. So Atlanta is building its own culture of it now, and there's a lot of agencies here. There's a lot of big names here. Every shop has to open up in Atlanta. That's just part of the rules. But what I'm seeing now is this kind of consolidation, and you're seeing these accounts, they turn over a lot. They're getting, they can't find people because the people are wanting too much money. I'm seeing that happen here, and I'm wondering, you deal with people in other parts of the country also, right? How do you think Atlanta, give some context of Atlanta versus the rest of the country and what you're seeing here and the strength of the agencies versus other places? Just from what you've seen, what do you think about Atlanta and fitting into all this?
I think in general, like I work with 250-ish agencies, and there's probably only, there's less than 10 in Atlanta that I work with. But I think in general, to your earlier point about like the trends I see, I think I'm positioned, fortunately, I lucked out in this. I work with independent agencies who are 20 to 200 headcount, something like that.
Yep.
Brands that I'm chatting with who have big names are looking to move away from big holding company agencies, and they want smaller, nimble, and specialized. And I think there are some strong, small, nimble, specialized agencies in Atlanta and beyond. I think the biggest thing is agencies just need to be honest with themselves about the business that they are good at. And that's why, like, I'm encouraged when I hear a brand who has a huge name saying, yeah, we want one agency who is really good at this, and we don't care what size they are and stuff like that. So I don't know, that I find Atlanta incredibly connected in terms of it feeling like a small town, where I don't feel like that in New York. I throw dinners for CMOs as well and can consistently get 25 or 30 people, and it's warm. Everybody has some sort of connection to each other on the brand side, at least.
Yeah.
The only mildly negative, I find the agency community everywhere to be competitive. I find it to be a little more competitive in Atlanta with like people not vibing as well with each other as I would like to see. Because again, business comes and goes. Like, you'll win a client, you'll lose it. You know, you should wish them well and fight to get it back. But there's no, in my opinion, like value in not coexisting well.
Well, I think that goes to the psychology of the agencies themselves, right? So to be a marketing person, to be an agent, you're usually a big personality. You usually come from some kind of sales background that makes you competitive. And I think that's part of the problem, right? Is that they're not looking at this like a business person that's being neutral. They're looking at it like a marketer who is trying to go and attract. And it's like you're trying to catch the fish and you're trying to chum them out and everyone's fishing the same waters.
It's so short-term thinking. Like when I hear the whole, again, like on my podcast, one of the things, we don't ever name agencies, but I ask everybody what's a negative agency story you have. And there's so many consistencies across just like, again, like everybody expects something eventually to go wrong, right? And it's how you handle it. I think people forget like you can screenshot emails and texts and share them. And like the things I have seen, if you had told me before I saw them, I'm like, you're lying. There is no way they said that. Like, what is the value of burning that bridge? CMOs love talking to each other. They love talking shit about other brands and agencies and stuff like that. So it boggles my mind. There is only one response to a negative situation. It's, we're really sorry this happened and we're going to do everything in our power to make it right. And if not, we'll help you move along.
And again, that has to be said immediately. You cannot 100%. Wait till afterwards, then pick up.
You should be telling them you messed up. Yeah.
And I think one of the other big problems is that because there's so much more pressure on marketing in this kind of economic climate, agencies are scapegoated. And that means that that marketing person wants to hire that agency because if something goes wrong, they can blame the agency.
100%.
That's bad business anytime you do it.
Well, that's the running joke. When things are good, it's like, oh, it's like economic factors. And then when things are bad, they're like, what's marketing doing? Like, what's the agency? What's the CMO doing? Why are we paying them?
Yeah. And I think another way to alleviate that, and this is something from my point of view, because we're marketers, but we're selling marketing. So if you're an agency or you are marketers, get to know the sales staff, get to know the needs of the sellers, because ultimately all marketing is trying to do is create some kind of inbound leads for whatever sales system, right? If it's e-commerce, the website is the sales system. You don't have salespeople necessarily, but if you are a company that's B2B especially, and you have salespeople and the agency or the marketing department doesn't go ask the salespeople what's wrong, that is a broken model to begin with. Sometimes it's just redoing the collateral. I mean, imagine your value to a company if all of a sudden on the first day you're like, you know what, you have crappy collateral. Come and redo the collateral and then you get 3 or 4 sales, you'll be beloved. And if your sales team is on your side, so I think, I mean, there's a ton of tips and tricks. One of the things I found, so we deal with a lot of agencies and we have a very bad reputation in this market of dealing with agencies because this is how I treat this. Like, because agencies are very territorial and their rule is you don't talk to the client, you talk to me. And I go, oh, that's cool if I'm doing business with you. If not, who the F do you think you are? My job is to go around you and circumvent you every time. So you want to stop that from happening? Give me money. Otherwise, you're done for. And here's the problem.
Gotcha.
And this is not an ego thing, but I've done marketing now for 20 years. I've worked at Live Nation. I've been in sports. I've been in radio. I've been in TV, media, print, everything you can do. Okay. I probably have a better pedigree of what clients are looking for than most of these agencies do. So it's not saying I know better than you. It's I know my property better than you. I know this client's needs better than you. So what is the purpose you're serving here? And that pisses people off. The last time I was on a phone call with somebody, he took 25 minutes of time to hear me talk. And then all he had to say after was, you know, the owner of your company really pissed me off one time 10 years ago. And I was like, seriously, dude? I go, I have trying to help you secure and close a business client. And you're worried about what the owner of my company said 10 years ago, realistically. And now this is one of those examples of an agency that was at the top of the mountain and has fallen so far down that they're picking up scraps now. And you wonder why that's the case.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, again, like, I don't necessarily disagree with you in that very specific scenario. I don't like disagree with the territorial part. What I would have done drastically differently is if I don't, because again, like agencies I don't work with kind of hate me, I think. They're like, why does this guy exist? Why are we competing with this guy? And again, it would be smarter of them to like try to form some sort of relationship, right? Whether we work together or not. For stuff like that, again, coming from an agency, I would have been territorial as well, but my answer would have been, let's grab a cup of coffee and like talk before I just like haphazardly throw, like I'm very stingy with my network of people, right? Like before I'm putting somebody on the phone with somebody, like especially a CMO, I'm like, we need to talk and like get to know each other. And people don't take the time to do that, you know? Like, so I think like the tactical thing is this entire world is all relationships and people forget that. My hot take on LinkedIn, which shouldn't be a hot take, is the work doesn't matter. And what I mean by that is, of course, the work matters. But like, you got to do the relationship stuff first. Like, people do business. You can overcome bad work, right? You can redo it. You can get there. You can't overcome if you're just like, I don't like that guy. Like, I don't want to be in the same room with that person, you know?
Yeah.
I think people underestimate the value of the relationship.
And what I tell, because I was being a little, you know, I was exaggerating a little bit. What I tell the agency is, I'm like, look, guys, I go, I have Truist seats. I have Hawks front row seats. I will be at the Masters.
That's the only reason I'm sitting there.
I will be at the Masters, right? And why I'm saying that is that when I'm with these people, you think when I'm with the CMO or the CEO that I'm going to bring you up as the agency? No. So if you want to challenge, you be in those places, and you're just going to say, because it doesn't work that way. Like, one of the things that I love about sports is a grand unifier, right? You could be the guy that valets the car to the CEO of Delta, and you can talk sports together. You're not talking politics. You're not talking business ethics. You're not talking about most things. You could talk sports together. That has allowed me to create this network of people much higher up than I had ever dealt with. And most of the time, the highest up people don't even know the agency relationship. They don't even know. I'll tell you a funny story about it was SunTrust Bank at the time, so it's a name change. So it's fine for me to tell you the story. So when we used to send an agency proposals every year for SunTrust Bank. Our owner, David, ends up in the room with the CEO of SunTrust Bank. And he has the nerve to say to him, he goes, hey, how come you've never bought us? He goes, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. I have nothing to do with any of that stuff. So he goes to his agency and says, why haven't you bought these guys? To the CMO at the agency, they go, oh, nobody listens to that station. He goes, I've listened to that station for 30 years and I can recite the theme songs. He goes, are you saying you wouldn't want my business at SunTrust Bank? And they go, well, what do you mean? So, needless to say, about 6 months later, probably 9 months later, we secured the single largest partnership this station ever has. It was a bigger, longer term, more money partnership than any radio station in this entire probably country has, and that agency was fired because of one simple fact. They made assumptions to the wrong person. Right? So saying nobody listens when the CEO listened means you were thinking about this completely wrong and you have these preconceived notions. That place where there's been multiple agencies involved, multiple things, but our relationship has been consistent. And now to this point, we're probably the most consistent thing in their entire marketing department. That has nothing to do with dots, X's and O's. It has to do with relationships.
It's also such a long-term thing too. Like whoever that CMO is or was at the time, like they'll have 5 more jobs. So even if it's not the right time then, you know, like they'll have 5 more opportunities to sell something. Like it's being an advocate in the moment in the short term and not, you know, messing up a long-term relationship over a short-term gain of winning like one deal. And I feel the vast majority of agencies think short-term, whatever is in front of them in the moment. We have to win this, which I can appreciate to agree because it is a little bit of a land grab. When you say that there's 150,000 agencies out there, I'm like, that's insane. You know, and it is a little bit of an acquisition thing of we need to just get people into our ecosystem, right?
I agree.
But people do that and then they try to sell them something they don't need. They're like, you're in. I'm like, just relax for a little bit. Like, take them to dinner, grab a coffee, like, root for them and genuinely root for them. Like, there will be something down the road. Agencies just cannot help themselves. Yeah, and the best part of that is that, like you said, there's so much turnover in the industry that the bridge you burn might burn you multiple times. 100%. So if you are not, and I think one of the things I've come to learn, like, let's say radio specifically. Now, radio is a diminished industry, right? Across the board, it's being bought out and people are going bankrupt. But I will always support other radio stations. I will say, hey, I'm thinking about this station. What do you think? I think, well, the rising tide lifts all ship. I want radio to succeed. I go, you should at least go have a conversation with them. Here are some things I would ask or look out for, because I know how on a corporate level they're doing business, and this is what I would look out for. But I would never badmouth somebody going to radio. Now, we get badmouth. I mean, there's a target. Every day of my life, there's a target on my back. Never to my face, because when I see these people in public, it's always a hug, and you guys are doing great. But it is a target. And let me tell you how important that difference is. When you're telling somebody, hey, I would at least go talk with them. Radio is a good mechanism. You should use it. Versus, oh my God, don't. Those guys are going to rip you off. They're going to do this. Let me tell you which one is a longer lasting impression. It's actually the one of you being a prick is the longer lasting impression. 100%. People will remember that longer than you just saying, I'm not saying spend money with them. I'm not saying take it from me. I'm saying I would absolutely not hold it against you to go talk to those guys. I get asked about specific agencies sometimes. Hey, you know anything about these people? And there's a list of agencies I've either worked with and disengaged with, or that I just haven't heard the best, that I'm, don't have a relationship with. And I give a similar answer of like, I haven't heard the best, or like, I don't have a great relationship. Form your own opinion. Maybe you love them. And usually the answer is like, they got to be doing something, right? Because they have clients and like some people like them. That's the thing. Like you disliking or having a negative experience with an agency could still be the best agency for somebody else. And my unpopular opinion, which is hard to say to CMOs often, is if you've had a ton of negative experiences with agencies over your career, which a lot of people have,
it might be you.
You just might be not the best at evaluating agencies. It's hard.
Yeah.
Like it is really hard to evaluate a bunch of agencies and hire them. I give them grace for it, but there's every week I get sent a lazy ass LinkedIn post of somebody saying it always starts the same: all agencies suck. Just a laundry list of their bad experiences, and I usually comment like, is there even 1% chance that like you just aren't great at picking agencies? So
yeah, well. If it happens once, shame on you. If it happens twice, shame on me. Like if you're picking, because it's like a job interview, right? The more you interview, the more you realize that people are just salespeople, right? And the shtick that they're giving you, you can read through it all the time. There's some people that present just really well. I don't imagine it'd be different with agencies. And I think, especially if you're talking about the older, and this is going to be a generationist comment, but if you're an older man or woman in your 50s or 60s, then yeah, flashy AI-based presentations because you don't fully comprehend them might be mind-blowing to you. You're right. That doesn't mean these people know what the hell they're talking about. It means they put a lot of time into a flashy presentation. I joke about it all the time.
That's why I think I exist. If I had to like sum it up into the value I provide, I cut through the BS of both sides. Like an agency has to sell me first before they sell an agency. And I don't have a tolerance for BS anymore. I'm like, just talk to me like a normal. Like again, that's the most common reason I don't generally engage with agencies. Second we get on the phone, they start like selling me and telling me about their low. I'm like, can we just have a normal conversation for 10 minutes? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, in the past 2 years, one of the things that I've felt, and it's going to sound, this is probably not a conversation you probably ever had with an agency. One of our biggest for this company, and again, we're not an agency, but we are doing similar business. I'm building strategic advertising plans across multiple channels, and I'm trying to help a client perform an initiative, right? When people say it's all about driving sales, they don't understand how marketing works, because there are plenty of projects that have nothing to do with sales. Community, PR, they want to raise prices, so they have to raise their value proposition. There's a million reasons to market. It's not just to drive sales. But our moral compass is so high that that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because there's trust and we have long-term clients and they will come back and they love us. And even if they leave, like, hey, it was nothing you did, the timing was off. It's a bad thing because my competitors will go out and whore themselves out and give everything for free and make lies just to get them aboard and not care what the end looks like. My salespeople are full salespeople. They collect money, they write commercials, they do everything, every part of your business. If in 4 years they don't know everything about you to the point of obnoxiousness, they haven't done their job right. That is what's wrong. And most agencies don't have that kind of connections because once a salesperson sells it, it's handed off. And then the boss comes in and then the brand director comes in, and it's so many people that you don't have time to build those relationships. And the salespeople are just there to get you aboard, they get their check, and then they move on.
That's why I think real, true, great agencies do not have sales teams. Like if you have an actual sales team, I'm not saying that you can't do good work and stuff like that. To your point, there's not a need to just constantly be selling something, And if you're a sales team at an agency and that's your only job is to sell and then like pass off to an execution team, it feels weird to me, you know? Like my uncle comes from big agency background, that was the day of the Rainmaker. Like they didn't have sales teams. It was the guy, You had like the Ogilvies of the world. Like he was the guy. He figured out relationships and got people into big brands, and that was it. It feels weird to me. And again, people name it differently, like account executive
Everyone's
or something like that.
I agree with you. Everyone's selling something. You're networking, you're meeting people to do it, but you're saying sales teams that show up with their presentation in their hand and give you the shtick. And
if I'm calling you and saying, have you thought about building your website today? Like that to me feels, I don't know, weirder than just forming relationships and doing it. I think that's the right way. They can both arrive at the same point, but I personally seek out agencies that like don't have large sales teams. When I hear that, to me, that's a pink flag, not a red flag necessarily, like somewhere in the middle.
Well, look, let's present the other side of this, because one of the things that I think has changed so much, dude, if you're talking the 60s and 70s, all an agency took was manpower. Right? Because it's the design, it's the creative, it's the madmen, the boards, and you're doing all this stuff. And then that one campaign will sell itself. Now, because of digital marketing, because of Google, Facebook, everybody's got their hands out. Everyone's got a cut. There's so much money it is so expensive to run a good agency. One, your margins are tighter than they've ever been. Two, it's harder to find people. Three, because of, and I got to position how I say this. Because of the COVID work from home, employees taking charge movement, most agencies I go into, they're burning candles and doing yoga, not doing actual work because of that lifestyle. That's just part of this. And I'm not criticizing it. I get it. You need to have a clear mind, but it is really expensive to run an agency now.
It's hard.
Is really expensive, and the margins that these clients are willing to pay and the timeframes are shrinking. So you have to put your best foot forward all the time. And I think if you have a tendency of coming from being in business for 30 years, you're still relying on old ways of doing business, which are flash, pop, let me do this, let me tell you who I've been with, call this guy, let me take you to this event, let me do this, as opposed to the, hey, let me show you how we're dynamic, how we switch on the fly, and how we move. So how do agencies modernize? Are you seeing that are people realizing that this is a trend? And are you seeing modernization right now? Are you seeing new agencies come up? What are you seeing in the industry now that gives you hope for the future?
Yeah, I think the smaller specialization gives me hope. It's interesting to your point. I totally agree. It is incredibly difficult to run and grow an agency. It requires all of that stuff. It's also simultaneously, I think, one of the industries that is like the lowest barrier of entry to enter because anybody can say they're an agency.
Every ex-radio salesperson starts an agency, and everyone has 6 or 7 clients they launch with, and then all of a sudden that's great. But
100%. Does it have longevity? I don't know. I like to think, again, it's funny. I think it's easier than ever to stand out as an agency, even though there are so many, because of AI and people like looking for shortcuts. And I don't know a better way to do things than these relationships. Every CMO I am meeting with or talking to is craving realness, somebody who is not going to sugarcoat and genuinely have their best interest, which is where I think I do a really good job, partially because I think everybody's a little bit dead inside after COVID. I don't care, which I think throws people off. If we're going to do business, cool. That'd be great. You know that I'd love to do business with you. If we're not, that's cool too. Here's what I think you should do.
It's also not very Southern of you, man. This is a very, especially Atlanta, it is almost a passive aggressive town that understands it's being passive aggressive. So like people hate me because I will say right to your face, like, look, let me tell you why that's not a good idea. Let me tell you how that is BS, what you're hearing. And it is very abrasive up front. And then usually it's that, probably I would say a couple weeks or a month, people are like, this guy's the worst. And then about 5 weeks they go, oh my God, he was right. This is so much easier. Let's just skip all that. Can we start a conversation? Yeah, now we can. Absolutely. Because why? What's the point?
Yeah,
but that's a New York thing, man. If you're walking on
Long Island roots, you know,
they're not gonna stab you to your back. They're gonna stab you to your face, making eye contact with you. So they don't have time for the other stuff.
I think CMOs get sold to so much, and if that is all they are looking for, that's why I think like one of the things that I tell every agency, which you think would be common sense, whenever there's an issue, my first question is, did you pick up the phone? So many, no, we didn't pick up the phone. You think we should pick up the phone? I'm like, yeah, you should have picked up the phone.
You should have picked up the phone
last week. Almost always. When I ask how it went, they're like, oh, we talked for 2 minutes. Everything's cool. We're great. Like, you know, stuff like that. So the little things nobody wants to do, like all of the stuff that I used to think everybody does.
That's so funny.
Replying to emails with the word received.
It's like, the most fun part of the job is getting on the phone and talking through that stuff.
I agree.
And I think that's also
people don't like confrontation. I don't mind confrontation.
I love confrontation.
It's the New Yorker.
I love confrontation. All right, this has been a great conversation. We're wrapping up segment 2. We'll be right back for segment 3. You listen to the Marketing Madman on Extra 106.3. And again, we'll be right back.